That's what this moment needs. And our job in this body is to be truth tellers. Our job, just as you said so brilliantly, is to elevate the voices of the people of the country, because you're right, Amy Klobuchar, this is the people's house. It's Article 1 of the Constitution, and it's under assault. Article 1 is under assault. Our spending powers, our budgetary powers, the power to establish agencies like the Department of Education and USAID, it's under assault by a president that doesn't respect this document. And how do we stop them? I'm sorry to say we hold powerful positions, we are elected by great states, but we're in the minority right now, and you spelled it out at the beginning of your questions to me. It will take 3 people of conscience on that side. It will take 4 here. I'm going back to my book because there's somebody that you know, I don't know if my staff put it in at the last moment. Yes, they did. Margaret Chase Stevens, who you know. Margaret Chase Smith, excuse me. A U.S. Senator from Maine, a Republican. When a demagogue had rose in the land exploiting people's fear, deporting Jews who were not citizens of this country because they were accusing them of being communists, at a time that this body was being twisted and contorted to the will of a demagogue, where nobody had the courage to stand up. It was a woman from the Republican Party that stood, I don't know, somewhere in this body. Her feet might have been tired, her heart might have been hurt, she might have been afraid of the consequences to stand up to people preaching the Red Scare. But this woman in this body, rare thing in those years, this woman in this body who are founders, those imperfect geniuses that wrote this Constitution, the woman in this body who wasn't imagined by our founders, thank God they called upon us to make a more perfect union, and generations of activists finally made it real that women could serve in this body. She had the courage, the audacity to call her own party to task. I read her words. She said, "I don't believe that the Republican Party is any sense a party of fear, but I do believe that the Republican Party has made an alliance with the 4 horsemen of fear. The fear of communists, the fear of labor unions, the fear of the future, the fear of progress. I think it's high time that we remembered that we have sworn to uphold and defend the Constitution," she continues. "I think it's time that we remembered that the Constitution, as amended, speaks not only of the freedom of speech, but also the freedom of trial by jury." This great senator, this great Republican said, whether it is criminal prosecutions in a court or character prosecution in the Senate, there is little political distinction when the life of a person has been ruined. Those of us who shout the loudest about Americanism, in making character assassinations all too frequently, those who, by our own words and acts, ignore some of the basic principles of what it means to be an American. The right to criticize without thinking the president is going to drag you from the Oval Office for criticizing him. The right to hold unpopular beliefs. That if you have beliefs that I find contemptible, it doesn't mean that I can disappear you from a city street. She goes on, the right to protest, that just for assembling and speaking up, that's not a right to cut hundreds of millions of dollars to that university's science funding. The right to independent thought. The exercise of these rights should not cost one single American citizen his reputation or his right to a livelihood, nor should he be in danger of losing his reputation or livelihood merely because he happens to know someone who holds unpopular beliefs, like a law firm that represents suing the president and now has their very firm, their very livelihoods, the legal secretaries and others come after them. Margaret Chase Smith goes on to call her party to be a woman of conscience, to stand up and say, I quote, "The American people are sick and tired of being afraid to speak their minds, lest they be politically smeared as communists or fascists by their opponents. Freedom of speech," she says, "is not what it used to be in America. It has been so abused by some that it is not exercised by others. So, dear God, if I stand up in this body and say it is wrong to put Pete Hegseth in the cabinet as Secretary of Defense because he's unqualified, he's unqualified, he's unqualified. Look at a Signal chat to see how unqualified he is." Margaret Chase Smith continues, "As a Republicans, I say to my colleagues on this side of the aisle that the Republican Party faces challenges today that is not unlike the challenges it faced by Lincoln back in the day. The Republican Party so successfully met that challenge that it emerged from the Civil War as the champion of a united nation. In addition to being the party which unrelentingly fought loose spending and loose programs. I doubt if the Republican Party could do so simply because I do not believe the American people will uphold any political party that puts political exploitation above the national interests. Surely we Republicans are not so desperate for victory. I do not want to see the Republican Party win that way."
We're watching here as senators debate the GOP budget and DOGE cuts on Capitol Hill. We'll be right back.